One misty evening in August 1990, two men were hiking in the Scottish Highlands when they spotted a rather strange-looking object. An object with no visible means of propulsion, simply hanging silently and motionlessly in the sky. Suddenly gripped with fear, the men took cover behind a tree, barely able to process what they were seeing. But fortunately, one of them had a camera and the presence of mind to use it. As the shutter clicked, the silence was shattered by the roar of a Harrier jet tearing through the clouds, circling the strange diamond-shaped craft as if it were preparing for a confrontation. And then, without warning, the object shot straight upwards and vanished, leaving only questions behind. The photo they captured that day has since been called the greatest UFO photo ever taken.
There's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they moved. They did not have an easily explainable pattern.
When we talk about sightings, the other thing I will tell you is it's not just a pilot or just a satellite. Usually we have multiple sensors that are picking up these things. There's actually quite a few more than have been made public.
What do you think is the most likely hypothesis?
I think some of the phenomena we're going to be seeing might in fact be some type of activity that some might say constitutes a different form of life.
I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program.
Non-human intelligence exists. Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity, and there are unelected people in the government that are aware of that.
You know, when I tell friends I'm interested in UFOs, the reactions are predictably mixed. Some roll their eyes, others are confused as though I've just announced I'm joining a cult in rural Wales. And yet, look, I get it. I'm a cynical man by nature. I may have stayed in the most haunted prison in the UK and Japan's most haunted hotel, but I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in the paranormal, because a belief in the paranormal requires a leap of faith or a personal experience, something I simply haven't had in 35 years. But UFOs are different. The barrier to entry is lower, simply because we have physical data to pore over. Whether that's photographs or military-grade footage, or eyewitness testimony from trained pilots and military officials. It's not about jumping to conclusions about aliens or little green men. That's always been the problem with this subject. It's simply about trying to explain the unexplainable. And I'll comfortably admit, in the past 5 years, I've fallen down something of a rabbit hole. Because if you keep your eyes and ears open to the news, whatever you believe in this subject, undoubtedly something rather strange is going on. In 2017, the UFO topic was blown wide open when the New York Times published an article revealing the Pentagon had quietly spent $22 million on a secret program called ATIP, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. Alongside the article were 3 now iconic videos showing declassified footage of what the US government called unidentified aerial phenomena. After all, the acronym UFO has something of a stigma attached to it historically, and anyway, a year later, the Pentagon confirmed that the videos were indeed authentic. The first video is footage from what is now referred to as the Tic Tac incident, taken in 2004 off the coast of Southern California. Infrared footage shows a white, oblong object, described as a Tic Tac, hovering mid-air, then suddenly zipping out of frame at high speed, with no visible propulsion, no wings, and no exhaust view. And most notably, a pilot, Commander David Fravor, happened to see it visually, saying it dropped tens of thousands of feet in seconds and moved unlike anything he'd ever seen.
There were no rotors, no rotor wash, or any sign of visible control surfaces like wings. As we started clockwise towards the object, my Wizzo and I decided to go down and take a closer look, and the object suddenly shifted its longitudinal axis, aligned it with my aircraft, and began to climb. As we pulled nose onto the object, within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerated in front of us and disappeared. There, the controller had told us that these objects had been observed for over 2 weeks, coming down from over 80,000 feet, rapidly descending to 20,000 feet, hanging out for hours, and then going straight back up. For those who don't realize, above 80,000 feet is space.
The second video, known simply as Gimbal, was filmed 11 years later off the east coast of the US by a Navy fighter jet using a targeting pod. In the video, a disc-shaped object with a glowing aura rotates mid-air and flies against strong headwinds, with pilots audibly reacting to what they're witnessing.
There's a whole fleet of them, look on the SA.
And it's hard to really know what is going on given how fuzzy the object appears to be.
They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Well, if there's a thing, it's rotating.
And finally, the Go Fast video from 2015 shows a small object skimming across the ocean at high speed. Once again, there's no wake, there's no exhaust trail, or obvious means of propulsion, though skeptics argue that it might be a parallax effect of the jet in the air filming something far down below on the ground. With that in mind, it could be as mundane as a balloon. But just as compelling as the acknowledgement of the ATIP program was the man behind it, Luis Elizondo, a former US Army counterintelligence officer. In interviews, he revealed that these videos are simply the tip of the iceberg, and that far more compelling video evidence exists. Footage that the US government has refused to release, citing national security concerns.
Do you think any government has recovered a crashed UAP?
It is my belief that the United States is in possession of exotic material, and unfortunately, that's about all I can say at this time.
Ultimately, Elizondo claimed that a group working within the US government and closely with defense contractors have been retrieving non-human technology and biological remains for over 70 years. But I think for a lot of people, myself included, who've had a kind of passing interest in UFOs, these headlines really made a lot of people sit up and start taking a renewed interest in the subject. I mean, it all started to sound like a plot from a sci-fi film, and it was about to get a heck of a lot weirder.
My name is David Charles Grush. I was an intelligence officer for 14 years, both in the U.S. Air Force and most recently at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency.
David Grush, a former intelligence officer, claimed under oath to Congress that the US had recovered non-human craft with a crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, having interviewed 40 witnesses over a period of 4 years.
I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program.
Do you believe our government has made contact with intelligent extraterrestrials?
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
That's where we are today, in this sort of strange space where many officials appear to hint at something rather mysterious, others outright just say there's non-human intelligence and the government is hiding it. Whatever way you look at it, it's a lot to take in. You know, at times I feel like a pendulum, swinging between skeptic and being a believer. A few years ago, when all this started coming out, I would say I went closer to being a believer. You know, there were too many videos, too many reports and headlines. It felt almost like there was a sense of momentum, there was some sort of disclosure happening. But on the other hand, part of me struggles. You know, in a world with 7 billion smartphones, people with cameras in their pockets, why is everything so goddamn blurry all the time? And with AI and deepfakes now, how can we really trust any modern day footage? Still, I wonder, maybe we do have all the evidence we need and we've simply ignored it or discounted it over the years. And Lord knows, if I was non-human intelligence, I would be far more interested in a huge nuclear-powered aircraft carrier going around the sea, as opposed to observing mere civilians. And of course, those locations that do have high-tech infrared military sensors capable of potentially capturing these craft. And what about the people making these outrageous claims, like David Grush, like Luis Elizondo? They seem measured, eloquent, and their credentials really do check out. They aren't random internet personalities. These are people who swore under oath with reputations and careers on the line. Sure, you could say they have something to gain financially. I mean, in the case of Luis Elizondo, his book Imminent was a New York Times bestseller. He does speaking tours. He is undoubtedly financially invested in this subject. But ultimately, it comes down to two unsettling possibilities. Number one, a number of highly credible individuals have been completely misled. And honestly, that might be a more terrifying idea than UFOs, given these are people often at the top of government positions. Or number two, something really is happening, something that defies our understanding of physics, technology, and perhaps reality itself. Now, I've been wanting to make this video for years, partly for my own sanity. You know, I feel like there could be something huge going on, and it is slowly being drip-fed to the public. Like when I think about it, if I was in the government and I wanted to announce the presence of non-human intelligence, the best way to do that would be slowly and surely warm people up to the idea. Like, think about it, if the government outright announced right now that there was non-human intelligence here operating on planet Earth, think of the absolute panic, the fear, the terror that would ensue. And what better way to inform the public than doing it slowly? And clearly, it's kind of working, because 42% of the American population believes in UFOs. And the question I ask myself is, why do I have an interest in this, or a belief in it perhaps, more than my friends around me who are, as I've said, fairly sceptical? Like, does having an interest in science fiction predispose you to the subject? In a weird way, you know, do you want it to be true? Do you want to believe? And the answer is yes and no. Like, on the one hand, yes, I do want to believe that there's more going on than this. I do want to believe that there is other life out there in the universe, that it's not just one big, cold, barren place. And yet, on the other hand, as a kid, I found E.T. absolutely fucking terrifying. And I don't want him to be real in any way, shape or form. Honestly, I don't know what to believe. What I do know is I don't simply want to sit here any longer and read headlines on the subject. I don't want to read this. I want to go out and do my own goddamn research. And it just so happens there's a village up in rural North Japan that's famed for being a UFO hotspot, with a man who claims to have seen something highly unusual in the sky back in the late 1970s. I've never actually met a first-hand UFO witness before, especially somebody who's had their story as highly publicised as this guy has. So let's hit the road, let's catch the train to Fukushima, find out what's going on, and when we get back, well, talk more about this. Now, while the government might be covering up knowledge of UFOs, one thing that isn't a conspiracy is your sneaky internet service provider knowing what you're up to, and that is where today's sponsor, ExpressVPN, comes in. ExpressVPN encrypts your internet traffic, masks your IP address, and allows you to access geo-restricted content. Admittedly, the first time I used ExpressVPN, it was to access websites back home in the UK that I had trouble with in Japan. But by switching quickly and effortlessly to a UK-based server, I've never had any problems since. Best of all, with multiple streaming services like Disney and Netflix, streaming services of different shows in each and every country, and by changing your location, you could have access to thousands of extra shows. For example, if you want to watch Studio Ghibli films in Japan, simply switch to the UK, click the button, and it's hello Miyazaki all the way. It really is that simple. So whether you want to access a website that's blocked in your country or take your internet security to the next level, you can find out how to grab 4 months free by clicking on the link in the description box below or going to expressvpn.com/abroad in Japan. And don't let annoying regional internet get in your way again. With our interview arranged with our UFO witness, Miura-san, I take the Shinkansen 300 kilometers north to Fukushima City to meet up with Ryotaro, who's waiting to drive us on into the wilderness, to the mysterious rural village of Ino.
Yo!
Morning!
Welcome to Fukushima!
Good to see you, man.
Just get in, let's go!
So what is going on in Ino town?
After the nuclear disaster, there have been a lot of scientists gathering in this area to monitor the area, not only the radiations but all sorts of collecting all sorts of data. So they've been probably monitoring the sky as well. That might be one of the reasons why the sightings are being increased. Over the decades, right, a multiple number of people have seen UFOs. There's a mountain there, and the mountain seems like that attract the UFOs.
What exactly have people seen?
Well, UFOs that moves in incredible speed, not in a way that you would see in the airplanes or helicopters or anything like that.
So the person we're going to meet now actually claims to have seen a UFO?
Yes, Miura-san. I only talked to him on the phone, so this is the first time we're meeting. But he said that he actually saw a UFO at that very mountain that we are going.
It's pretty cool to think the place we're going is the town with the most UFO sightings in Japan.
Yes.
Whatever is going on there, it's pretty intriguing.
Oh, definitely. There should be a reason why this place that we are going has got the most sightings, right? I mean, there are many mountains in the whole Tohoku area. It's thousands of mountains. And I was just wondering why UFO actually chose this very mountain to be attracted to.
You'll know when you've arrived in Ino village thanks to the alien poking out from behind the sign. That being said, the village stands out from its backdrop, given it lies at the foot of Mount Sengan-Mori, a conical 400-metre mountain that almost looks like an artificial pyramid. The mountain certainly looks the part, and here at the base lies the International UFO Lab, a site that's become the go-to place for Japan's UFO enthusiasts. Opened in 1992, it's home to a staggering collection of 3,000 photos, videos and materials associated with UFOs. And some of Japan's most compelling photos remain on display, many of which I've never seen published anywhere else. There's some pretty compelling photos here in the museum, and of all the photos, this is my favourite. It was taken in 2018 up a mountain, 2,450 metres by some hikers. They were taking photos of the mountain, and then afterwards, after they took a look at the photos, they realised there was an object here in the sky. Don't know what it could be, clearly not an aircraft. Doesn't look like a bird either. I always find those the most interesting photos, the ones where you take a photo and only afterwards realise you got something. And in this case, God knows what they've got there. That's a genuine UFO. This is a map of all the UFO sightings across Japan. You'll notice in Tokyo, there's a huge concentration of sightings. But the second biggest concentration is actually up here in Fukushima, where we are right now. Each one of these oranges has multiple sightings. For example, where we are, there was a sighting in about 1974. It says an entire school of children saw 10 UFOs. It's unusual that this area in particular has this number of sightings, especially given the rest of Tohoku, huge area, barely has any at all. Clearly something unusual is happening in this part of Fukushima.
It's not long before Miura-san himself appears, and I'm instantly struck by how unassuming he is. This isn't a man who strikes me as somebody who wants publicity. And after showing us a drawing of the UFO he witnessed almost 50 years ago, above the summit of Mount Sengan-Mori, he begins to tell his story.
UFO を見たのはですね、昭和52年10月です。秋口稲刈りの帰り、バイクに乗りまして、帰宅途中ですけども、夕方5時半頃ですかね、千貫森の真上から、オレンジ色の円盤なんですが、2、30機編隊を組んでですね、音もなし、本当にオレンジ色の円盤がですね、ゆっくりとこう自分の真上を飛んでいったっていうのが記憶にございます。で、その光がすごく眩しい光で、だいたい時間的には10分歩かないか、そんな感じでした。この世のものではないなという感じで、思い出しています今。この近くの方々に僕たちいるんだよっていうこんな感じで伝えられてるのかなと思いますね。
Really interesting hearing Miura-san's story. And you have to wonder, what the heck did he see? I honestly don't know. Something like an ember in the sky. You instantly think, could it have been a fire, maybe? A fire on the mountain? Somebody doing a bonfire or something? But then he said he saw it in formation. And so, I really don't know.
We decide to climb up the summit of Mount Sengan-Mori, where he spotted the UFO, to see if we can find out anything unique about the mountain. The summit is said to be a popular spot for various occult gatherings, and sure enough, as we arrive at the top, we spot a man who appears to be saying a few words with a series of bizarre hand gestures that neither Ryotaro nor myself have ever seen before. And after declining the opportunity to be on camera, he disappears back off down the mountainside. Sengan-Mori objectively has one thing going for it though. The rock beneath the mountain is highly magnetic, something the village encourages travellers to test out with a rather surprising item in a can.
So we've reached the summit of Sengan-Mori, and it's eerily peaceful and quiet up here with jaw-dropping views across all of Fukushima. Perhaps the only thing more mysterious than this mountain is this. A compass in a can. I've never seen one, you probably haven't either. This mountain is comprised of a very magnetic kind of rock, and they've put some in this can, and you can test it with a little compass. So, without further ado, there's the rock, and there is our compass.
Let me just check, okay? It does, look, wow. So it is highly magnetic, huh? Look, wow. So this supposedly why is one of the reasons why this whole place, the mountain, attract UFOs.
UFOs love magnets.
That's what they say. I like it. Look at that. It's fun.
This is what fun looks like when you're 52.
Whether it's magnetism, radioactivity, or something else in play here, Ino Village has left me with more questions than answers. One thing's for sure, the village itself makes a rather anomalous backdrop here in North Japan.
What do you believe, having been to the town?
So they've been here and then meeting Miura-san and hearing his stories, seeing all these pictures, it made me a bit more open-minded, tolerant about things that are beyond my comprehension, I guess.
It's hard to know what to think, really. It is an unusual town, there's no two ways about it. Meeting Miura-san really was the most interesting aspect though, and it's creepy to think he saw it literally right here, right above where we are now, right? In formation. I always like to play devil's advocate when I come to these places and imagine everything that's said is true. And when you come up here, look out across the mountains of Fukushima, you can imagine it. You can imagine it to be true. Especially knowing just over those mountains is the second largest nuclear disaster in, history. Yeah, it's an odd place. So having spent 5 years sort of invested in the subject and having now gone to Eno town, what do I think about all of this? Where do I stand? And like I said earlier on, it feels like being on a pendulum, constantly swinging between skeptic and believer, right? The story of this Calvine UFO is absolutely fascinating. What do I think this is? Well, back in 1990, when those two guys were hiking through the mountains of Scotland and they saw this object in the sky, took a photo, they were working as chefs at a hotel in a town nearby. The photo got sent to a journalist, and that journalist sent it to the Air Force to try and work out what the hell was going on. In the days that followed, one of the workers at the hotel saw a car approach the hotel with two men in it who walked up to the chefs, had a conversation with them and put the fear of God into them. In fact, those two chefs disappeared off the face of the earth not long after. And to this day, the man that took this photo remains a bit of a mystery. What's most incredible about this photo is for many years, we only had copies of it and drawings because this original photo remained hidden for about 20 years, only coming out in 2022, when the journalist who had a copy of this photo rediscovered it in his garage and actually shared it publicly. And Sheffield University actually did a report that's about 30 pages long, investigating what it was and what they believed it to be. And it's a fascinating read. I'll put it in the description box below. But the verdict is, it is a real object. And in all likelihood, it probably is some form of military technology, because this photo, taken in August 1990, was snapped around the time of the First Gulf War, when military assets were being shifted around Europe and in particular in the UK. Like, it has the characteristics of some form of stealth craft. It's not too dissimilar looking from the stealth fighter, the Nighthawk, that was deployed in the Gulf War itself. But I maintain an open mind, and the story behind the photo is almost as fascinating as the photo itself. My second favourite photo amidst this pile is this one, 1971 in Costa Rica. A geographical survey was being undertaken in Costa Rica. An airplane was taking photos of the coastline, and when they looked back, they found this anomalous metallic object floating in the sky. Again, to this day, it's never been solved. To those of you that are interested in the subject, my favourite book is called UFOs. It's by Leslie Kean. It's simply a book that lets military officials, government officials tell their story around the world. There's no assumptions, no conclusions. It's simply just interesting people telling their story about bizarre, unexplained phenomena that they saw. But I am curious as to what you guys think. Hopefully you don't think I'm completely bonkers. If somebody has a story of a UFO or an object they've seen, hear them out. Don't dismiss it. Try and work out what they saw and what could be going on. And on the flip side of that, if there is a fairly obvious suggestion as to what that might be, in the case of a video the other day, I saw some people filming at night a strange object without any means of propulsion that, in all honesty, was simply a fucking seagull.
Did you see that? Oh my god!
It's just as important to be skeptical and to call this stuff out as it is to be open-minded. And if you ask me where I am right now on the pendulum, swinging between skeptic and believer, I really don't know, honestly. Maybe slightly more towards believing than being a skeptic. Because if all these people are lying or exaggerating or have been misled, then that is equally as frightening as non-human intelligence being present here on planet Earth. And I'm bloody curious as to what you think, more now than ever. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Do you think you'd be comfortable coming up here alone at night, sitting down?
Waiting for aliens to come.
Waiting to be taken.
Or taken? Oh, it depends on where to.
Well, they're not taking you to Tenerife, are they?
That's what I was
holiday.
thinking, exactly. That'll be nice.